do you ever feel like that when it comes to incidents at your company, that you're just reliving the same day over and over again? But one difference is, unlike Phil Collins in Groundhog Day, he got a clean slate every day. It erased the consequences of the previous day. And we don't often get that. We don't get a fresh start. The consequences that we experience from the last incident could be an injury, could be an economic impact to your company, reliability issue affecting your customers, quality issue. They're still out there, and you're still affecting people and lives with that. So we don't get to erase the bad things. So how profile associated with the original problem stays constant. But what we've done is we've introduced a change, and people don't like change. And when we introduce a change in how things are done, we can at least temporarily increase the human error rate of those performing the task until they get used to it. Now, if the change makes the process inherently more complex, what we could do is provide more opportunities for human error and actually increase the human error rate going forward. Same thing with equipment. Let's say that as a corrective action from this incident, we go ahead and implement a design change. Whenever you do a design change in terms of how the equipment is operating and design and its components and materials, we can temporarily increase the error rate. Now, think about never buy a first-year car, right? And don't you think that the automobile manufacturers, design people, they tried to anticipate all the downsides, everything that could go wrong with this design change, but they don't get them all. And so you want to avoid that first year car until they get the bugs worked out. And so a design change to equipment can at least temporarily increase the failure rate of that equipment until we get the bugs worked out. But if the change makes it inherently more complex, there's more moving parts, there's more inputs, there's more things that can go wrong, we can at least or permanently increase the failure rate of that particular piece of equipment. So meanwhile, we didn't address the real issue, is risk profile stays constant. What we've done is increased risk, at least temporarily, on the things that we touched that had nothing to do with the incident. So bad cause analysis and bad corrective actions, it's not some benign thing that, it's no harm, no foul. No, we can do a lot of harm to our companies by getting it wrong. We got to fix the right issues. And so HOP integration will help increase the probability that we get to the right answers. And so we're trying to break that cycle and make things a lot better. This resulted in a significant life-altering injury. And so if you see the picture in the center here, you'll see laying toward you a high voltage disconnect. And in the back, you'll see the structure from which that high voltage disconnect has been lifted from. And you'll see the other two phases still on the structure in the back. So the task was they would go ahead and use this crane in the right, and they would go ahead with a 4-sling apparatus. So slings attached to the hook, and then shackles on each end attached to the base of the disconnect in 4 locations. They go up there and lift it off and lay it on this dunnage, this wooden cribbing. And so what was supposed to happen is that once it's laid down and set down on the cribbing, that they install lag bolts on either side through the frame into the wood dunnage. Then they're going to disconnect the shackles from the frame and then lift the rigging apparatus free, and then go get the next one and set it on alongside of it. In this particular case, the crane, when they were lifting away the shackles, caught on the frame and started tilting it toward the right on that right picture. At the time this occurred, there was one individual standing on the left side of the disconnect, and there were 3 on the right side. When this thing started falling, 2 on the right side of the disconnect were able to evade. 1 fell backwards, and the double glass insulators portion of that fell on their legs, and again, significant life altering injury. Let's say the person will never be whole again. Okay. The crew tried to lift the disconnect off the person, could not. It weighed 1,800 pounds. They repositioned the slings on the crossbar and had to use the crane to lift the sling off of that. So that's the event. So here's some issues. The crane operator, when it was time for him to lift the hook and lift the 4 slings with the shackles attached, he was concerned because he saw the crew wasn't holding the slings away from the disconnect. And he'd had cases in the past where a disconnected shackle had caught on the load. He was very concerned, and he thought about getting out of his cab and saying something to the crew to warn them, asking them to hold the slings away. But he did not. And the reason he did not was because he had done so the previous day and been ridiculed. He told them, hold those away, and essentially been said, stay in your cab. We got this. Don't tell us how to do our job. The crew leader, who he was working for as staff augmentation, also laughed at him and said, we got this. Don't worry about this. So he thought about saying something, but he chose not to because of what had happened. So you see in the drawing over on the left, we have a people-to-people interaction that affected the actions and decisions of the crane operator. But there's a programmatic issue as well. The crane operator, even though he's in charge of basically operating the motive force for the lift, he is not in charge of the lift. He's not in charge. The crew leader is in charge. So you have a programmatic issue that affecting the people that they're working with, and also the crane operator in the center, that is affecting the where you don't really feel that you can stop this. You know, we talk about work stop authority, but sometimes you don't feel like you really are enabled to do it. So you got a programmatic issue that crane operators are not in charge of the lift. Some other issues that were a factor in this particular event, if you look in the right photo, in the bottom left corner in the right photo on a map, you'll see the lag bolts that were supposed to be installed through the frame into the dunnage. And they're laying there on either side. They did not get installed. What had happened is the worker standing on the left side of the disconnect in that right photograph, he was going to install the lag bolts like he was supposed to, but he saw a pair of operators or electricians descending in a bucket. And he's the new guy. And he's been told that if you're the new guy, you got to serve the people that are more experienced than you. And no one should ever come down in a bucket. You need to get them what they need. So when he sees the bucket descending to the ground, he gets distracted, asks what they need, and forgets to install the lag bolts to secure the frame to the dunnage. Another thing in terms of a weakness here, this same event had happened less than a month before at another substation where 4 disconnects had toppled into one another. That information had not been communicated. They didn't have a effective program for communicating lessons learned. And so the job itself could have been done with people standing on either end of the disconnect. They could have disconnected the shackles from there where no one is in the line of fire. But that information didn't make it out due to a programmatic weakness there. And so just showing you there's a lot of these events that I see that these things actually come to life. You know, we see the weaknesses in the task-based system on the left. We also see Sidney Decker's principle. People do what they do at the time they do it for reasons that make sense to them at the time. Made total sense for that crane operator in their mind to not get out and intervene. Made total sense for that worker to react when he saw a bucket coming down to the ground. And so people, we have to consider them in the context of the system in which they operate. Here's 5 keys to having great success doing incident analysis, and they all have to do with HOP. The first and most important is that the senior leadership of your organization has to be grounded in HOP principles, not just know about them, but to be believing in them, living them. They have to really have a grounding in human organizational performance principles. The second is that the participants in the incident analysis themselves must be educated when it comes to HOP. Also, HOP has to be integrated with the methodology itself in terms of your processes that you're using. They're driving you to consider human organizational performance issues. It also has to be integrated with the solution identification. Not all corrective actions are created equal when it comes to effectiveness. So we have to integrate and think about what truly will fix this going forward, what truly will change behaviors. And then finally, HOP has to be integrated with the processes you use to review and approve the results of your incident analyses. In the barrier analysis, it's a very well-known tool. What you're doing, a tool, you're taking the theoretical Swiss cheese model and you're actually building it for this particular event. What was my threat? What was my target? Barriers that were present that did not work and why? Ones that were present worked. Ones that were missing that could have made a difference. And you're also considering barriers, layers of Swiss cheese after the target, those like your emergency response protocols, emergency lighting, that are for detection, mitigation of the results, effect, duration, and severity of it. And so, great tool. If you cannot draw a logic diagram that shows a clear connection, fact-based connection, all the way from consequence down to causes and contributors, then you got no business approaching management to get them to spend a lot of money. If it doesn't make sense, you got to quit, right? So by making you do a logic diagram, helps you avoid jumps in logic. You could have landed in the wrong spot and have errant conclusions. Help you recognize that complex set of interactions that it took to get to this event, this day, this way, this bad, how everything worked together. And it's a great tool for communicating the basis for your team's conclusion to management because they can see your work. This is what you view as logical that led you to these conclusions, and they can follow along. And as a management reviewer of many, many root cause analysis reports, including some of the ones in the nuclear industry, 100 pages, the very first place that I would go was their logic diagram. Because if there were breaks in the logic, and I said, why did this happen? Because of this. And if it doesn't make sense, I don't need to read that report because it's error carried forward. They need to fix that. And so it's a lot less subjective as a management reviewer to say, there's a break in your logic here, as opposed to, I'm not comfortable.